Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Pinnacle Effect, brought to you by Policy Engineer. I'm here in the Grant Cardone studios, here with who I can call a good friend now, Mr. Jarrod Glandt, and I'm so excited to get into this conversation with him today. As you know, on the Pinnacle Effect, our goal is for you, the viewer, to expand your mind on what you believe is possible. And I'm going across the globe, finding those people who are just hunting down the pinnacle in their lives. And so today, connecting with Jarrod, I'm gonna help you better understand his story and his drive, and hopefully you can help expand your mindset on what's possible by joining me on this venture with him. So I appreciate it, Jarrod. Thanks so much.
Dude, it's great to be on the show with you. I don't know, do you want to tell everybody like how this all came about?
Yeah, sure. So,
just tell everybody that the long and short of it is,
yeah,
he showed up at 10:30 last night because I'm an idiot, and he showed up at 10:30 at our office PM. And in my mind, I thought we were doing it 10:30 a.m. And so this guy showed up, hung around, and then he still showed up today to do the deal. So,
right. So shall we disclose why I thought it was 10:30
Well,
p.m.?
that's because I told him 10:30 p.m. I don't know where I got that from.
Well, let me tell you this real quick. If you have a moment in your life where you have the opportunity to think positive or negative, like I probably could have, I just want to encourage you to think positive, because everything happens for a reason, and everything's happening for you, not to you. And I know that whole situation, it's happened for me and for you.
That's a really challenging thing for people to do. Like, to really think about, like, optimistically about everything. Like, it's very easy to get brought into, like, the effect, of, like, things are happening, like you said, to me. When you accept responsibility, for everything, that's been one of the biggest things I know for me, like, along the way, that's really helped out, is just getting into a point where I can just say, I'm creating and causing everything. Like, if you accept responsibility for things, then you can control them.
Right.
If you're the effect of things, then you can't control them. And so then it's like, how come I'm not getting the raise that I want? My boss or my company sucks. How come, I can't get this guy or this girl that I want to get with? How come I can't make it happen? They must be this or they must be that. Like, if you can flip that in business, man, that customer didn't do the deal because they're cheap or because they're indecisive, they can't make decisions. Like, if you can just flip that, that's one of the biggest shifts I think that happened for me, is I just literally started accepting responsibility for everything. And then, if you're married, if you make things your responsibility, like, it's a game changer. And your like you said, like, your fitness. Like, it's all your responsibility. You got to get in the gym. Like, well, I don't have time to go to the gym. Well, you could wake up an hour earlier.
Right.
Like, massive shifting point for me. And that was one of the first big things that I learned with Grant, was he was like, dude, if you accept responsibility for nothing, you can control nothing. If you accept responsibility for everything, then you're at cause over it and you control it. And it's really, people naturally, I think, want to blame. Like, they want to give a reason. Like, they're defensive. They're very like, well, it happened because this happened over there because of that. Like, instead of going, yeah, I probably should have done a better job of this or that, or I could have done this or that, or I should be doing this or that. Like, making it about them. Right. It's a game changer.
So let's just set the context, right? Mm-hmm. For those who don't know who you are, you're the president of Cardone Technologies?
Grant Cardone Enterprises.
Grant Cardone Enterprises. And so the story and the journey of you going from where you were to being the president of a, nine-figure company, which is like, there was a time where I didn't even know how many numbers 9 figures equal. Yeah. And I think a lot of people watching this, it's the same thing. So let's break that down a little bit. Like, let's start with the beginning and kind of how it trickled and got here. And I also want to share that the reason why you're a perfect fit to talk about the Pinnacle Effect is because from what is displayed in all of the different things that you're doing is that you attached yourself and surrounded yourself by at least one guy who's chasing down his pinnacle, right? So take me all the way back to like...
Yeah, so I've been with Grant for 10 years, and 10 years ago when I found him, my dad had sent me a YouTube link of him, because I was in a transition point and knew that the job that I was in wasn't going to be my forever thing, and was ready to just like get serious about my life. Like I had been really hung up on friends and fun and I just started noticing around me. I'm like, my friends are getting married. Like I like it happened twice. Like two friends like found their girl. One guy got married. He got pregnant, had a kid. My other best friend it got engaged, and I'm just like, oh my God, musical chairs is happening right now, and I don't want to be the last one standing. You know, I don't want to be the one that's standing and everybody else has a seat. So I'm like, they're gonna do their own thing. I need to go do my thing. So got this YouTube link. Ended up tracking down the office, the phone number. Called the office every day for a month and a half. This was back. Grant Cardone was not who he was today. I mean, he was the same person, but like nobody knew who he was because social hadn't come out yet. Like social was still like early on.
So what are they telling you when you're calling every day for months?
Hey, is Grant there? Can I talk to Grant? I want to get in front of Grant. How do I get in front of Grant? And that would be from the assistant. He's really busy. He can't call you back. And then I'd call. I'd say, the shipping guy would answer. Hey man, what's your name? What do you do there? Oh man, how is it? You like it work? Like I just started working every angle. And then for a month and a half, I called the office. And then finally you'll appreciate this. Finally, on a Sunday morning, I was in San Diego, and they were in LA, in Sunset Plaza, so right off of Sunset Boulevard. Sunday morning at like 9 a.m., I get a phone call. He can see you today at noon.
Nice.
I'm like, at the time I was broke, so I'm like trying to figure out clothes to throw on, and like LA to San Diego is, 2.5 hours with nobody on the freeway. Yeah. And so like I'm trying to jam up there to make the meeting.
At 37 miles an hour.
Yeah. So fortunately it was a Sunday, and I ended up getting up there like barely in enough time. Hauling ass 100 miles an hour the whole way.
What are you thinking while you're driving up there?
Don't be fucking late. Like, don't be late. Don't blow this. You just spent a month and a half trying to get this together, and you finally did. So don't be late. And so then, I talked to one of his guys. It wasn't even Grant, because I got there and they were like, he had to leave.
No.
I swear to God.
Yeah.
Oh so that's why I said you'll appreciate this. And I was like, okay, well, make the most of it, right? Like, how do I figure out how to do this? I went to the guy that was running. He'd been hired to be kind of like a sales manager, but I don't know. Anyways, he and I started talking. He was the one that ended up making the decision, saying, yeah, I guess we'll hire you, And again, this was very small. Like, it was like 3 and 4 employees at the time. So
at that moment, did you have one of those, how am I going to choose to act in this situation? Because you could be frustrated or pissed that he's not there, you were supposed to be there, or you can have the same really positive energy and talk to this other person who ended up being
I mean, at that point in my life, like I didn't have any connection with that type of like animosity, and I'm like a pretty easygoing person, and life was much less complicated than it is today. So I was like, okay, all right, let's make the most of it, and then interviewed. The office was in the pool house at the time. Big pool house, is $20 million house, and but
so Grant's floating on like a floaty.
No. He was flying to Dallas for a gig or something like that. So, but anyways, I interviewed. Apparently, he was like, yeah, I really wasn't sure about you, and then we went and got coffee afterwards, and he went to the restroom, and I started chopping it up with these guys that were there, and like, you on an interview? And so we started, just BSing or whatever, and then. He came back and he was like, all right, let's hire you, because he saw me talking to other people. So then, I got hired as a sales guy. I just started making calls and hey, we need another salesperson. So I ended up hiring another sales guy. I was a salesperson, right? Like answering phones, trying to sell stuff. I'm like, we need another salesperson. And then they're like, hire him. I'm like, okay. And then we start doing more deals, and then we need more customer service. I'm like, we need a customer service person. They're like, hire one. I'm like, nice. Okay. And then about this time, Sherry came along.
The CEO.
COO. Yeah, right. Sherry, our COO, came along, and then we grew the company to like 16 employees in LA. And then Grant was like, I'm moving to Florida. The taxes are crazy here, and I'm out. And then so we moved everything to Miami and went down to 3 employees and kind of started the whole thing over again. The only difference was we actually knew how to sell the product now, and we knew we had clients that were paying us. And so it was a big transition point, because prior to that it was just seminars, like live seminars and workshops. So he was like, I'm going to step away from that a little bit. I'm going to lean into this online thing, which is Cardone University now.
Right.
And then we just started pounding on that and building people around, and moved up, had to go to a bigger office space. And then now we're here, and we're up to, at his high point, 180 before COVID. We're at 155 or 158 right now. We're getting ready to buy this office building next door.
Massive building.
220,000 square feet. It'll be 10X center. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So like, it's just a lot's happened, and it's just, I think that it's a result of always like looking in the business as the owner would. Like Grant, really, he wasn't there a lot. He officed out of his home the first couple years, and when we were in LA, he had a home office. So he wasn't in the office every day. He's in the office more now than he was then.
Right.
And so I just always had personal ownership of everything that I was doing. And I don't know if it's because I was raised or whatever, but like when you show up and you're like, something's not right, or something can be better, or something should be different, or something can be done differently to where it's better for the customer or the company or something like that. When you're always looking for things like that, you get outside of the role you're in, because too many people get stuck in the job and they're just like, I show up and I do a job. Like, those aren't the people that ever go anywhere.
Right.
Like, it's the people who contribute on a higher level that continue to get opportunities.
So you talked about going in there and they brought you on as a salesperson. Had you sold anything before that, or was this your first exposure to sales?
Yeah, I'd been selling since I was 16, but just because you're a titled salesperson doesn't mean you know how to sell.
Right.
I think there's maybe 90% or more of salespeople are titled salespeople. That are personality-based salespeople, meaning they have they have a certain personality profile, which we talked about in the workshop. They've got a certain personality profile that makes them a little bit more extroverted, a little bit more chit-chatty, a little bit more, outgoing. And those people end up in sales roles, and they just, because of their ability to talk and communicate, they end up in a sales job. And then they always reach a plateau, though. Like, they reach a point where they can't break through. And that's really, like, I've been selling since I was 16.
Okay.
But I didn't become a salesperson until I started working for Grant when I was 26. And so
what was your plateau prior to working with Grant and getting the exposure and the lessons and all this stuff? You're selling since you're 16. What was the plateau before? What's the most money you ever made before?
I was selling advertising at 21 years old for Auto Trader.
Okay.
I was the number 2 rep in the country, and I was making 180 grand a year.
Now, this is Auto Trader when you got it in a magazine.
This was, it must have been in 2000. I dropped out of college for the job. This was in 2013 probably, or 2006 or 2005 or something like that. I mean, I graduated from high school in 2001, so probably 2003.
Okay.
Going way back, wow.
What did life look like back then? What were you making at that time? What was the lifestyle? I think.
So I was making 15 to 20K a month, and I just turned 21. I was still living at home with my parents, and I was going out every weekend and blowing every penny I made. I was getting tables at the club. I was, it was just buying clothes and going to Vegas and complete lunacy.
Yeah.
And literally, if I remember, keep in mind, I live at home, so I'm not paying rent.
Right.
I had a truck payment. I had a $60,000 diesel truck because I had a boat, all this. So but I have no bills, so I'm making all this money and I'm blowing all of it. I was like, if I could get to 10 grand in the bank, I'm like, wow.
So there's so many people out there that look at making 10 to 15 grand.
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
So I was making all that money, and then I got lured away by some new shiny object opportunity. Okay. And the company I was working with, $1 billion company, they started redeploying my territory. They put the thing that I blew up from $7,500 a week in recurring revenue to $28,000 at its highest. Wow. They put 4 reps in that in that same territory. So I was like, I'm out of here. Territory tanked. They called me back because I went back to school. I went back to college, did another semester. My the director of sales called me back, said, hey, we want you back in that area. I said, well, how long I'm not going back under what you guys, you chopped me from 20 grand a month down to 6 grand a month. Like, I ain't doing that. And then, so they gave me back my old territory. And then after I blew it back up, they redeployed it again, tried to put 3 more people in. I'm like, I'm out. I'm going to do this other thing for this guy. That ended up not working out. It was a startup. That ended up not working out. And then at this time I was partying, like drugs, weed, alcohol, pills, like everything. And then that thing didn't work out. And then I'm like, all of a sudden I'm on unemployment. I've been doing drugs now. So now I'm like complete loser, like total loser. And then ended up moving back down to, I was in San Diego, ended up moving to Texas because my dad had gotten a job out there. And so I moved to Austin with him, and like that was kind of where things were normalizing for me some. Okay. And then like I never went to rehab or anything, but it was just like I got rid of the other stuff because I didn't have any money for it. Started smoking weed every day, smoking weed a whole bunch. And then that was when I was like, okay, getting my life together. Got to the point where I was making 7 or 8 grand a month again, and then selling for my dad at the motorcycle dealership. Okay. And then moved back to San Diego because I was like, I don't want to be in Texas. And so that's when I landed at that job that I didn't really love. It wasn't my forever home, and then that's when I found Grant.
So
my point in saying that is that I went from a really high that you're like, dude, you're making 200 grand at 20, you're 21 years old. That's insane. To on unemployment with doing drugs all the time.
Right. And most people, unfortunately, aren't ever going to make $250,000 a year. And they would look at that as like financial pinnacle, right? But I think for many people who make a 6-figure income, it's just enough money to realize how not a lot of money it is. Yeah. It gives you exposure into another world that you can't have yet, but you're closer than you were. So how important are risks, taking risks?
If I wouldn't have taken the risk to from that job that I had making all that money, if I wouldn't have taken that risk and crashed and burned, maybe I didn't end up where I did in drugs and all that problems. But, again, optimistically, I'm looking at that going, I never, ever, ever want to go back to that place. Like that was the rocket fuel behind me was like, dude, you're a freaking loser. You suck. You had all this potential, you blew it because you made bad decisions, and that was the thing that propelled me. I pray to God that people don't have to go through that in order to have that fuel, that ambition. But for me, it was like the talent was there, you squandered it. Are you ever gonna make anything out of yourself? And then it was just like pure grit that pushed me out and got me into this like, okay, it's time. Like you gotta get on it. And I guess that, looking back, it was, I think, that moment that got me into this, like, you've got to keep growing. And, you look around you and you see people that are doing well, supposedly, but like you said, like, you're making 250 grand a year, you think you're making money, but, you can't go spend 50 grand on a vacation. Like, you don't have so much surplus that you're investing in things that can make sure that you have freedom later in life, it's that journey is just a weird thing. And again, like I hope that people can avoid having to go through the valley of that. Right. But a lot of times, you have to have something that propels you. And whether it's being super highly goal focused or literally the fear of going back to something is so strong, there has to be some catalyst to move you,
So you talked about moving here and Grant moving the offices from LA to Miami. I know a little bit more detail to the story that you took a risk, right? You put it on the line. You made a decision, I guess, before it was a final decision. So what I want you to expand on is, how do you make a decision or spot an opportunity and go for it without certainty? So many people are looking for...
Well, you have to. I didn't take the one risk going from that thing to the startup. I didn't take the risk of moving to LA. I didn't take the risk of moving to Miami.
But
you know, I didn't take the risk of giving up my when I was working in sales here. I'd blown my book of business up. I was making 35 grand a month in residual income based on deals that I sold without selling a new deal, and then gave that up to become the VP of the company. Like gave up, completely changed my comp plan, went backwards for a future opportunity. So it's, you know, it's never one risk. It's like you have to have discipline and discernment, and you have to be able to recognize when, like, that first risk that I took going from that job to this startup was probably not the right move. Like I didn't know anything about the guy. It sounded like a great idea at the time, but, you know, was I in a position to take that risk? I mean, when you're in your 20s, like, you still got a lot of game time left. So it's like, that should be when you're, you know, you should be looking for, you know, you don't have a family. I mean, you don't have a wife and kids or whatever, or husband and kids. Like, life gets so much more complicated than when you're single and you don't have all those things. Like, that is when you should be taking all the risks, because you can always, like, no matter, like, you can always go get a job making 60 grand a year. There's an abundance of jobs where you can make enough money where if you're single, you're like, I can pay my rent, I can pay a car payment, and I can feed myself. Like, there's an abundance of those jobs. But in order to take, like, big strides, you have to be willing to swing the bat. And because of that catalyst I had from the bottom, like, never go back there. It was like I was running full speed the opposite direction, and was willing to, you know, for the first 2 years that I worked for Grant, work 6 days a week, work 13 hours a day, you know, like, I was willing to do all that stuff because I was single and because I knew that I didn't want to go back there. And then things start working out, and I'd already built in all that discipline of work ethic, and then being so cheap and not spending money on anything, because I remember what it was like when I didn't have money in the bank. And, you know, so again, like, that was my path. I hope that it's a different path for people. And some people are much more calculated with the way that they evaluate risks. But, you know, your decisions to do things that would be considered risks need to be based on the clarity that you have and where you want to go. We talked a lot about this in the workshop that you were in. Like, the more clear you are on where you want to go, like, the universe, this isn't like a spiritual thing, but, like, things start happening around you. Like, when you have desire, you have clarity of purpose, like, you know what you want, it's definite, like, things start moving around because you have intention. And, like, I want this life, this is what I want it to look like, this is how I want my family to be, this is how I want my finances to be, this is how I want my recreation to be. When you get crystal clear on all that, you can start evaluating the vehicle you're in, or the job that you're in, or the circumstances that you're in, or the network that you have, and you just make the decision. Is it going to get me where I want to go or not? And then every decision should be made. If the thing that you want, the outcome, the goal, the dream, that truly is what you want, and it's not just some, you know, made up thing or borrowed concept from somebody else, or you're adopting somebody else's goals. Like, if you truly want that, then you'll do whatever it takes to get it. And that includes taking risks, and that includes going backwards, and includes moving out of your city or your town or your state.
So someone's watching this and they're like, yeah, I'm crystal clear, right? I want a big house and I
How
want
big?
a fast car.
How big? Where? How many bedrooms? What's the backyard look like?
Yeah.
Unless you've gone through to that depth, like, you've created lazy goals.
Right.
What kind of fast car? How much does that fast car cost? How are you going to have it equipped? Like, you have to connect with these things on a visceral level where it creates emotion in you. Like, I think this is the biggest misunderstanding or the biggest underestimation of power in life is clarity of that. And too many people spend too much time trying to figure out how they're going to get to this thing that they think they want: big house, fast car, beautiful family, fun trips, vague descriptions of things. They think that they need to put all their attention and focus on, how am I going to get there? What job am I going to get? What do I even want to do? Like, they focus on the wrong things. You need to focus all that energy that you put on trying to figure out where you want to work, what job you want to do, what field you want to be in. I was terrible at answering that question. Like, what do you want to do when you grow up? I'm like, I don't know. But I know that for me, when I got really clear on that ideal life that I wanted to live, I just started moving in the direction of that.
Right.
And every decision I started making was programs I was reading, books I was reading, events I was going to. Like, everything just started changing because it was so ingrained in my subconscious what I wanted that I was able to start making decisions based on, is it going to get me there or not?
Yeah. The other day you said something that blew my mind, and it was so simple, but when you're a kid, you're always asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you said the question, instead of being what do you want to be, but where do you want to end up?
Yeah.
And by thinking about where it is that you want to end up, it's going to flesh out the mechanics. They'll happen if you know where you want to go.
Like,
right?
again, so if you create this ideal life for yourself and then you start working backwards and you go, okay, I've been very specific in the thing that I want. And you take the time to figure out, okay, what would that cost? And then you decide, well, do you need active income or passive income in order to pay for that? Do you want to be working? Like, in my ideal scene, to get my ideal life, I don't want to have to work. I want to work how I want to, not the way that I have to work. Like, I want to choose how I work. I want to choose the things that I work on.
Right.
And so, like, if your ideal life, you're like, man, I'm going to need $1 million a year, or $500,000 a year, or $250,000 a year, whatever it is for you. In order to do that, for me, I need passive income to do that. So in order to get $250,000 a year after taxes from passive income, then I need to get to X, I need to get to $5 million invested in cash flow producing assets. Mm-hmm. And then in order to get that $5 million, I need to make $250,000 or $500,000 a year for the next 10 years. And I need to make sure that I'm putting away, X amount of dollars per year in order to feed that thing to get me the thing that I want. So it takes this to the point where you're like, I don't have the opportunity to make any more money than I'm making right now in the company that I'm at. There's no opportunity for advancement. I'm not learning anything new. I need to go find a new opportunity because I need to get to $250,000 a year so that I can put $100,000 a year away,
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, it's creating this dream up here and then making it real through the thing that you're doing today. Like I said this in the deal. You should be so clear on what you want and know exactly how much it costs that you can back all the way into the thing that you need to do today in order to get there. And that could be number of phone calls.
Right. A little bit ago, you were saying when you're young, you got to take all the risks. And a lot of these things happen when you didn't have kids, you didn't have a spouse, and now your life's different. You have 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
And a beautiful wife. Mm-hmm. Someone's watching this and they're 53 years old. Mm-hmm. Decades have passed. Nothing's gone the way they thought it was. They're feel down and out, right? Mm-hmm. They also feel like taking the risk isn't gonna hurt me only if it doesn't work out, but it's gonna hurt all these other people.
The stakes are definitely higher.
So how important is it to you, or do you think it is, to surround yourself with people who are where you want to be or where you think you want to be, and your thoughts?
It's everything. I mean, it's everything. Like, the friends that I was hanging out with and I was partying with, like, there was a big group of them. Like, when you're spending money like that, you have a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. But like, after that's gone, then you're left with kind of like okay, these are the real friends. And even though we were out partying and we doing all those things, like, everybody was pretty driven. Like, everybody wanted to do something substantial. Like, they wanted to make millions. They weren't talking about, hey, I've got an $80,000 a year job. Like, very entrepreneurial. So, like, although, like, we had some bad habits, some bad behaviors, like, the core group was very focused on making money. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have that, then you need to find that. And for a lot of people, you're like, none of my friends are on the same page with this. And that's the case where you need to leverage shows like this or online communities or groups like you're a part of with us in order to get connected with people that do think and act that way. And you don't need to be hanging out with these people on the weekend. You need to know, like, I mean, I've got people that have been in our groups for 2 years. They've never met each other. They're freaking boys, they're friends, they have these relationships, they talk all the time, and then they come to one of our live events and they see each other, and it's like, they're like, wow, I can't believe this is the first time I'm meeting you, and I've known you for 2 years. Like, that's the social media magic.
Oh, for sure. It's weird. When we met the first time, you didn't know me at all, but I was like, oh yeah, I know what he did yesterday, and this and that. It's just a really weird, phenomenon.
But it's not like, you don't feel like I don't know you. Like, you feel like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
And while I may not know you the way that we know each other now, like, that is still a way that you can learn information and you can be mentored by people, is from a distance, and you can get support from people. Like, it doesn't have to be internet is changing the way that people engage with each other. And for a lot of people, they need to redefine what they're looking at, because they think network means the people I hang out with when I'm not working in my town. And really what network means is the people that you're connected with, that you're influenced by, that you're communicating with.
So your dad introduced you to Grant, or at least who he was.
Yep.
You took the initiative to go and find him and say, I'm going to follow my dad's lead. Do you think your dad was telling you to go find him because he saw his son misguided, misdirected? Like, he obviously did it for a reason.
Well, he just knew that where I wasn't going to be where I ended up. And he knew it just wasn't like the right fit. And so the way that it actually happened was, my dad was running the dealership in Austin at the time. And
shout out to your dad's dealership. Let's give him some love.
well, he's not. He's retired from that. So,
cool.
So what happened was he had a guy come in that was like one of the seminar sales guys that came in and actually pitched my dad on it.
From Cardone.
Yeah,
Like Grant.
yeah. One of his road sales guys. And pitched my dad on a product, and my dad ended up buying something from him. But he was like, "Hey, you need to go." I just, met this guy or came in here, and he's like, "You need to go work for the guy that he works for." And I was like, "All right, well, let me check it out." And I had actually heard Grant's name before, because in retail, like, Grant was Joe Verdi. There's like a couple guys that trained, and I had heard his name but never saw a video, never been to a seminar, never been through one of his programs. But there was one guy that used to go, "No, this is the guy. This is the guy." But yeah, that was the start of everything. Was just, he had this experience and was like, "Man, this is the type of thing you should be involved in." My dad's always had more confidence in me than I have in myself.
Still today?
Yeah, of course. You think, your dad, like.
Yeah.
You think the world of your kids,
Absolutely.
I've always struggled with self-confidence,
So, how confident was that kid?
Very confident.
And so, this it's a picture. You can see it on his Instagram. This is back in the day when Jarrod would get like, what do you have? 59 likes, 60 likes on here. Now today, you're harder to get a hold of than you probably were when you posted this. But so this kid right here, what do you think? If you think, but how old are you, by the way, in this picture?
Probably 2 or 3.
Okay, so at 2 or 3, you probably don't have these thoughts yet. But as a young kid, I think is when we start to think of what we want to be when we grow up, and you start to look at the world around you and wonder how some have this and some have that. Did you ever think that you'd be the president of a 9-figure company doing what you do today?
It was funny because, like, when number one, when I was a kid, like, you couldn't shut me up. Like, I'd talk to anybody. I'd go up to the lady in the store. I'd be like, "Are you married? How much money do you make?" I was very, like, a little bit wild. And my son Jake, consequently, is the same way. But when I was growing up, back to that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never knew what. But I always was like, I want to wear a suit, briefcase, like that. In my mind, I viewed a successful business person, and had no idea what it was going to be, a lawyer or an ad man or, who knows, whatever. I didn't know. But I just knew, like, when I saw, like, successful people, it was like they were in a suit, They had a briefcase. They, like, had a newspaper underneath their arm, and I was like, "Man, that guy's got money." Because I grew up, like, my parents were middle class. We never needed anything. Like, it was never like, "Oh man, it's going to be a tough month," or at least if it was, they never communicated that to me.
Right.
But I just knew that there were a lot of things that we couldn't do. Like, didn't buy new cars, until later on. Like, it was like, we buy used cars, and so.
So how much has partnering with Grant Cardone changed your belief in what's possible?
Well, number one, learning what he teaches has probably been the biggest source of confidence, because like understanding how to get people to say yes to things, understanding how to pick up the phone and get somebody on the phone, like that, like if I had a new idea, if Grant was like, hey, you're out of here, I'm done with you. I know if I had an idea, I could pick up the phone and I'd call anybody.
Right.
Not because they would take my call, but because I just know, like, give me a list of 500 names and I'll freaking smoke that list. And so that is where a lot of confidence comes. I think the thing that really has been a beneficial thing for me is just to be exposed to a level of wealth that is like, you're worth $600 or $700 million. He'll be a billionaire in the next few years. And he was not a billionaire when I started.
Right.
Over the course of the last 10 years, I mean, maybe he was worth 40 million when I started working for him.
Right.
And because I gotten to see this whole thing happen, and again, people have a lot of access. They've seen the journey.
Right.
2 helicopters, G550, $2.5 billion in real estate. There's a lot that expands your concept in your mind of what's possible when you see that. Because most people see it on TV, they don't experience it, they're not close to it, and that's why Grant always says touch your dreams. So if you dream about buying a $200 million ranch in Texas, go fly there. If you dream about buying a $15 million house in Miami, go see if you can at least drive the neighborhood if you can't get in to tour the house. Make it real.
The closer the proximity you make, also the more it will define for you if it's actually what you want.
Totally. Like right now, a private jet is not a thing that is on my dream list. I'm not thinking oh yeah, I have a private jet. Because I haven't gotten to that point in my life yet. I'm just thinking how do I keep maximizing income and maximize time I'm spending with my family? Like you, nothing I love more than being with my family. I loved playing golf. You mentioned golf earlier. I played golf. I'm a member at the Turnberry Club. It's a great golf course. I never play golf because I'm always on Saturdays, on the weekends, when I have time off, I just want to be with my kids.
Sure.
It's so for me, it's how do I keep maximizing income, but still be as productive as I can here from 9 to 6. And then at 6 o'clock, I go home and I'm out. If I got to pop on and check an email or have my ringer on my phone to see if it's Grant. But, in most cases, if you call me after I leave and it's not something that I already am expecting, I'm not going to answer the phone because I want to give the time to my family. And I don't want just the weekends. I don't want to just be a weekend dad where it's because when I wake up in the morning, I get up, I go to the gym, I have to do that for myself so that I'm productive in the day.
Right.
So I don't get to see a whole lot of time with my kids. And I just know right now, this is what Jake is right now. He's, and so he's in that mode and so much happens. I saw this stat that was 90% of your bonding time with your kid comes between the ages of 1 and 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm and I saw that and it was just a dagger in the heart. And I'm you do not blow this.
Right. And having a connection like that drives you to make the most out of every moment when you're away from them. Would you agree?
100%. And then it also changes that ideal vision that you want because you're in order for me to get more time with my kids, then I actually need more money. But I don't want to sacrifice time now when I know it's the most important time for me to be there for them in order to do it. So I need to think bigger so that the deals that we do get us where we need to be faster while I'm in the office.
Right.
Either the deals got to get bigger, you got to work more, or one of those levers have to be pulled.
Right.
And so, Grant spends a lot of time with his family. People think that he's this all-in workaholic. He's always working, but he spends a lot of time with his family. It's so important for him. And I don't think a lot of people really see that.
Right.
But his family is everything for him.
I mean, I've heard him talk about having access to these things, the jet and stuff like that is what gave the ability to move them with him where he needed to go.
Yeah.
So I've heard him and you talking on some show in this studio, which, by the way, thank you for hosting me here in the studio. This is where the magic happens. If you guys have not seen Young Hustlers, happens right here. Coming back soon, right?
Coming back soon, yeah.
But I saw you and Grant talking. And he was really just saying something about, he talks about the Billies, right? The Billy brick or dropping that. And he made a comment that Jarrod, doesn't believe that he could get the Billy.
No, I didn't say I didn't believe I couldn't. I just said it's not like I can't think with it right now.
Right.
Like I'm thinking in my mind right now, I'm thinking if I can get to 100 million, then that is an opportunity for me to create generational wealth. Like I'm not writing down on my goal sheet, I want to be a billionaire. Like that's not, look, you got to get to 100 million before you can go to a billion.
Right.
And then maybe I get to 100 million and I'm like, I've been able to multiply my income. Like I'm 10% of the way there right now. So like but I also know that when you start cranking, like the graph moves quick. And so now it's like, okay, well, how do I get that done by the time I'm 50? Like if I want to get to 100 million, how do I do that by the time I'm 50? 100 million is a lot of money.
It
like
is.
A billion is an insane amount of money. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's a ridiculous number that like, again, I think because people are so uninformed about money,
right,
they're like, oh, I want to be a billionaire. Like why? Like why do you even want to do you know? Like if you can show me why, then great. Like I'm not trying to invalidate your goal, but like I'm trying to validate it for you.
Right.
The opposite. Why do you want to be a billionaire? What are you going to do with it? And they don't even know. It's just some lazy thing. They're like, I want to be a billionaire.
This sexy thing they see out there, or this more of a status. Or
my nanny this morning crushed me because I'm trying to find a place for us to move to. And I'm like, man, if I could just get rich. And she goes, you're already rich. Look at your family. And I was like, wow.
That's awesome.
I was like, wow.
It's so true, right?
Yeah, of course, And I was just like, oh my gosh, you're right. Wow.
That's awesome.
Thank you for that.
so cool to hear things like that, and just how something so simple, right, can just totally blow your mind. So what's an exercise that people can have if they really want to set goals and they really want to drive themselves to push? What's like a tactical thing that they can do that's going to help them get clarity, so they can start putting energy in the right direction?
I think the first question that you need to honestly answer is, do you want to get in life the things you want? Like you really have to answer that question, because the answer has consequences. Because if you say yes, then in order to add something, you need to give something up. Always. It never works out any other way than that. Like if you want to lose weight, you have to give up bad habits. If you want to make more money, some cases you're going to have to give up time, or you're going to have to give up resource. You're going to have to give up something. And so I think that if you say, yes, I do want to live the life I want to live. Some people are very, very checked out, and they're like, I don't know why. I've just got this thing that I get. Like there's no passion in their life. Like, and so like, again, I can't help the person that says, look, I don't want anything else. Like, I don't want to get into all that. Like, you dig down, there's some reason why they're saying that. But do you want to get the life that you want to live? Yes. Okay. Define what that is. It's allowed to change over time. As you change and you grow, it's allowed to change. But you have to go into the future and just say, what do I want my life to look like when I'm 55 years old? And for me, that's just the number. 60 years old, 55 years old, I'm 37. That's the number.
Assuming you're not 54. You got to think for it.
Yeah. So then for me, it's like, okay, define everything. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to spend your time? And I go and I look at houses and I look
write
at
it down?
Prices. No, I look at it. I go and I'm shopping real estate like I'm going to buy a house in Marbella. Like I'm going to buy a house in Mykonos, or I'm going to buy a house in Miami, or buy a house in Aspen. Like I go through and I look at real estate. It helps me identify what I want. Like, oh man, that's really over the top. Like, definitely don't need that. But then it allows me to create at least on a sheet of paper in like the physical universe, some definition of what I want.
Right.
And getting really clear on that. Because in the absence of that, you have no idea if the thing that you're doing today is the right thing for you, because you've never defined a destination. And so you end up wasting time. because you failed to identify where you're going. It's like going on a road trip and just driving around the United States of America, going on random roads for 25 years or 30 years, and then one day all of a sudden you go, hey, I want to go to Portland, or I want to go to New York. You finally figure out the destination, and then you go there, but you wasted 25 years of driving around aimlessly because you never were like, oh, I want to go to California, in Los Angeles, or, So the exercise is figure out what you want your dream life to look like sometime in the future, 60 years old, let's just say.
Yeah.
Get specific on everything: cars, houses, trips, charity, where your kids go to school, how often you go out to dinner. Like, I'll tell you, I'll just show you this right now, just so you know I'm not full of shit. I went through, and again, this is going to change. But no, that's the. You see, it's just I'm showing him right now that I literally went through, and I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. And then I'm like, okay, where is the...
There's a list of all
It's a list of all my expenses right now. And then I went through and... Where's that list at?
While he's looking for this, if you want a place you can go to help you break this stuff down, go to policyengineer.com/financial freedom. Policyengineer.com/financial freedom. If you go to policyengineer.com/financial freedom, you're going to get the opportunity to dig in there and just start extrapolating everything about what you're doing.
So then I went through and I'm like, okay, this is what I want right now.
This is what he wants. So there's a list right here. You can't see it, but is it okay if I read some of these things off? So we've got $25,000 a month in housing, $15,000 a month boat payment, $10,000 a month.
And upkeep.
$10,000 a month travel for trips, $25K each.
So that's 120,
Yeah.
Incidentals, 20 grand a month. Escalade, 1,500 a month.
911
Turbo S, 3,500. I already had that and got rid of it because I wrote this at the beginning of the year. That's not an important thing for me anymore. I bought it, I had it, I drove it. I was like, it's cool, but not that important.
Yeah.
So like I literally went through and I'm like, okay, required take home, $2,080,000. Which means that I need to make $4 million a year.
This is not a short list.
And then here's where I go through and I actually go, okay, that means based on the company and my comp plan, this is where I need to get the company. Right. Here's where all the revenue is going to come from. Right? And then these are other things that I want to have. So it's like you have to define these things and you've got to get clear on it. Right. And sometimes even going through the exercise and writing it down will make you go, oh yeah, that's not that important to me.
So 2 more questions and we'll wrap up here. Okay. You touched on comp plan. And so I think there's a lot of people out there that have this belief that when they drive around and they look at these things, like you said, and because as a kid we did that as a fan, drive through a fancy neighborhood and look around. And the question is, what do? They must have invented something, right? They must have started a company. They must be a world-renowned surgeon, right? I could never do those things, okay? You're an employee, right? Do you have to start your own company to become a multimillionaire? Do you have to invent something?
No.
Just like, how can someone feel the strength? Like, what do you do? How do you play the game as an employee to rise to these positions? Like, what's your...
Dude, you can learn for free. Like, like you can learn without the risk involved. Like, I've learned so much. And if the opportunity didn't continue to grow here, I wouldn't be here. Like, the opportunity continues to get bigger. I make more money now than probably 98% of people that own their own business. Like, and I don't have to be the guy on the hook for it.
Right.
Like, so and I love what I do, so I really do have a great situation. But as long as the opportunity continues to grow and you have clarity on where you want to go, then you're constantly like, okay, I need to check in. Is that still important to me? Is this still the thing that's serving that and allowing me to get there? And then you keep checking in. That's why writing your goals down is so important.
Right.
Because you stay connected to them so that if the vehicle changes or the destination changes, you can make adjustments. And so like, yeah, I mean, it's a constant change and evolving thing.
How often you share that list with Sandy?
We talk about it all the time. Like it becomes just a thing that we're like, hey, look at this house. Like we're constantly in that. She loves her life right now.
Sandy's his wife, by the way.
Yeah, Sandy's my wife. She loves Like it's a stretch for me to get her to think into because she's so happy. She does work that she loves, gives her flexibility so she can spend as much time as she wants with the kids. Like, there's other things that she wants, but like she's so happy where she's at. And that's not complacent, but she's so grateful for where she's at that it's like, how do I even think bigger? And then so we went and toured a $15 million house, and she's like, oh yeah, I like this. Yeah, you'll go get to work.
Visualization.
Yeah.
So I'll end it on this note. There's so much more to talk about, and hopefully we can revisit the conversation as things grow and these numbers and things change for you. And it's exciting to see what you guys are doing, and I'm so fortunate to be a part of just the ecosystem. But tell everybody, what does financial freedom mean to you?
So this is a very specific definition. This is not a vague definition. Financial freedom to me means that you have enough money generated from passive income, not just to cover all of your expenses in your lifestyle, but also to create enough money for you to continue to reinvest to grow your principal. So it's not, most people define it as like, hey, when your passive income exceeds your expenses. But I think even a step further than that, it's when your passive income exceeds your expenses and you still have enough surplus left over to continue to invest and grow. And then that creates a wealth flywheel, where as long as you don't make any mistakes or any bad decisions, you're on a rocket ride to go up and there's no backing out.
A wealth flywheel.
Yeah.
So that you can attain it and keep it. That's the
And keep growing it.
And keep growing.
Yeah.
To create a system that can fuel itself, right?
Yeah.
And part of that system is the system expanding and
Yeah.
growing. That's awesome. Well, Jarrod, thank you so much for joining me on the Pinnacle Effect.
Yeah.
Everybody, where can they follow you at if they're not following
Just
you now?
at Jarrod Glandt on every platform. So
All right.
Instagram is probably my most common.
At Jarrod Glandt. We're in the 10X headquarters right here, soon to move into an incredible building. Follow this guy. Follow Policy Engineer on all platforms. I'm the People's Advisor, and share this video if it did anything for you.